Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bimmer Barn. In today's video, I have a 2-for-1 special. We're gonna be talking about if eBay parts are any good for your BMW, as well as how to install your new axles when you're working on your BMW. So this video is gonna apply to a ton of makes and models, but today we're gonna be working on my E46 all-wheel drive wagon, and I bought a 12-piece suspension kit from eBay because the front suspension on my car was completely shot. There was a ton of play and movement, and I figured we wanted to replace everything. And I also got brand new axles. Both of these parts are from Detroit Axle. This is an aftermarket brand that you can easily find on eBay, and they make aftermarket OEM parts for just about every application and most BMWs as well. So we're gonna be installing these suspension pieces today, comparing them to the OEM pieces. And I'm also gonna be using a special tool, which I'll have a link to in the description below, that's gonna help us install our new axles. And this is not some expensive tool that's gonna cost $500. So I hope you guys learned something in today's video, and let me know if you like these combined videos where we cover two topics at once with a comment down below or a like. So now let's take a look at the old pieces that I already removed from the car so you can see just how bad they are. So here we have all the suspension bits from one side of the vehicle. You can see we have our front control arm and then the outer bushing here. Now this looks a little bit different on my car than it would on a normal E46 because mine's all-wheel drive. But here is the inner and outer tie rod, and you can see the steering boot here has completely torn, and this is on both ends as well. So we got a lot of grease built up in here, and I'm sure it started to damage the joint. And all this stuff looks original, including the sway bar end links. So these ones not in bad condition, honestly. The boots are still in one piece, so that's pretty encouraging because usually that would be torn apart by now. But on this bushing here, the front control arm bushing, this has some tears in it. It's clearly dried out and probably just like super hardened up, and it's just gonna start deteriorating pretty soon. So this boot here, it's still in half decent condition, but there was definitely some play in the joints here, and that's why we're going to be replacing everything. So I've unboxed everything. We have it in front of us here, and you'll see that there are a couple differences between the OEM design and like these ones, for example. So if we look at the factory steering boots, they definitely have more of like a cone shape with a small band clamp over here. And this one is going to use a bigger band clamp. Now they come with these. I don't really know what these are, honestly. If one of you guys knows how to use these, they look like aluminum foil to me, honestly. So these look really frail, and I'd prefer to use something a little more heavy duty than this, but I think we'll probably use some zip ties because that's what I did when I installed something like this on my E36. So on my E36 hatchback, I did the front control arms as well as the inner and outer tie rod for the steering, and I am very happy with the performance there. I have abused that car on and off the track, and everything still feels tight from the front steering. So I'm super excited to get this stuff installed because I'm confident in the quality, and I'm sure that it's gonna last many, many miles to come. So let's go ahead and start loading these parts onto the car. One thing that I'm gonna do is I'm going to try to get the alignment close by basically matching the length of the new tie rods with the old ones, and that way hopefully we'll have the same steering settings, or at least it's going to give us a base to start from because we'll later have to do an alignment check, toe check at least. So let's go ahead and throw these on the car, and then we're going to take a look at our brand new axles and compare those with the OEM ones as well. Well, we're almost done in the front here. We've got the lower control arm installed and also the inner and outer tie rod for the steering with the new boot. But now we need to turn our attention to the control arm bushing. And the one on my control arms were completely shot. In fact, one of them came apart in pieces. You can see this one is hollowed out here. So the kit came with these new bushings. They seem to be the same as OEM, like the same fit and size and all that. But rather than do an OEM solution, we're gonna upgrade to some Powerflex bushings. So let me go ahead and unbox this and show you what we got. Well, here's the kit, and it looks like these ones come with a two-part system. So it's like the inner is made out of their softer purple urethane, and the outside is made from this harder black urethane. And then in the instructions here, it's really cool. It says that you add some grease or silicone grease to the ribs here, and then when you insert this into the casing, it'll stay lubricated. It'll keep that grease inside of there so that you don't get any sort of squeaking. So that's really cool. Shows you the orientation here that you're supposed to install it with regards to your control arm. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my toolkit out, see if we can press out these bushings, and then we're gonna go ahead and install this on our new control arm so we can get it on the car. So I thought I'd be able to get the bushing out using my bushing pull press and pull sleeve kit, and unfortunately it looks like this thing is just pretty seized in there. It's giving me a lot of trouble. Rather than sit here and try to fight it, what I think I'm gonna do is we're gonna head out to Harbor Freight, and for the first time I'm gonna buy my first reciprocating saw, some blades, and that way we can just cut this thing out from the middle, give it a little notch, and then we'll be able to easily bend it in half and just pull it straight out. So I'm gonna head to Harbor Freight now, and I'll be back in 1 second.
Eventually.
Perfect. Well, I have to say the trip to Harbor Freight was worth it because this $29 reciprocating saw was able to get those bushings out and make it easy in a pinch for us. So saved us a lot of time, and now we have a reciprocating saw. So it's a pretty nice method to use if the bushings are stuck in there and you can just cut through them. But now we're gonna go ahead and install our Powerflex bushings in here. And I think that we have to install them in two pieces. So I think the black part goes in on its own, and the purple probably goes onto the control arm, and then we'll put both of them together and bolt up this bushing. So there we are. I've installed the outer part of the bushing, and a couple things to note here is that the easiest way to get it in is probably just by compressing it with the hose clamp like I did. And then the other thing that you want to make note of is that there is like an offset to this thing, so you want to put the thicker side on the outside and the thinner part on the inside here. So I got both of these really close to each other, and I think I got them installed pretty well. But the next thing that we're going to do is lubricate these channels here for the lubricant. We got to install this on the control arm, and then the purple piece, and then the purple goes into this, and then this will bolt into our subframe. So let's go ahead and throw this on the control arm and see how it fits. actually easy. And I'm surprised that the outer bushing is staying on there too, considering it was at first trying to slip off there because of the silicone grease. But now that it's fully on and I use the dead blow hammer, it doesn't seem to be popping off. And of course, once we get it bolted up to the subframe here, there's no way that it could pop off. But I do like this design. This is pretty cool how it's off-centered like the OEM bushing, but 2 parts makes it pretty easy to install. So now what we're gonna do, since we have all the front suspension bolted up, but none of it's really torqued down yet because we need to get our axle installed. And of course, if you saw us remove the axles, which I'll put a link to that video up above, you'll see that we were able to remove them by just kind of rotating this assembly out of the way here. So that's how I expect to get our new ones in. So why don't we go over to the bench and let's take a look at our new axles. Here it is, our new axle. I got these for a great deal off of eBay as well. I think it was like 150 or 200 bucks for the pair. And again, the factory ones were super torn up, and when they're open for a long period of time, they tend to get dirt into the bearings and the CV assembly here, so it actually ruins them, and then you'll get noise while driving, and they could even separate, explode, or anything like that. So when you have that condition, it's best to just replace the whole axle. These ones are from Track Motive, just similar like a Detroit axle company. It's just an aftermarket solution to an OE part. So we're gonna go ahead, throw this in. What's nice is that it came with a new C-clip right here. So we need to grease this shaft on this side here and make sure that the clip installs nicely. We'll get it inserted, and then we'll put the spindle onto the front of the axle here. And I'll show you guys the special tool that I have, which is meant for installing axles just like this, and that way you don't have to pound anything in and risk damaging your brand new babies right here. Well, that was a lot easier than I thought it was gonna be. The rear section to go into the diff, remember there's that little C-clip there. So I used my dead blow hammer, and just like 1 or 2 light taps was enough to get that C-clip compressed and the whole thing pressed in really easily. Now the front here, I added just a little bit of grease, and it looks like the axle fits in really easily. Like, this is kind of uncommon for it to just slip in and out like that. It seems like the tolerances might be a little bit smaller than the factory one, because the factory ones I'm pretty sure are supposed to be pressed in and out. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the axle nut on here, but before we do that, I'm gonna show you guys this special tool that I have, which is perfect for getting axles back in when you have to service them, or you know, when you're doing like a bearing job or something like that. So let me get the tool really quick, I'll show you how it works, and then we'll get back to putting the nut on. And then we should be almost done. Just bolt up the rest of the suspension and I'll be able to show you guys the final product. So here's the tool that I recommend you grab. CV axle shaft puller wheel bearing hub installer kit. This is the one from Bob Auto. It's about $60 or $70. Bob Auto is closed, but I think that ECS Tuning bought them, so you can get all their tools and all their products through there. So this kit is perfect because it's gonna do all your BMW axles. I think we'd be using one of the bigger sizes for these axles. But basically you can see that it's threaded here, and this threads onto the front of the axle shaft. And then you're gonna grab it with this tool here, and that's basically just going to brace the hub from the outside and then pull this straight through. So it's gonna pull this axle puller up and basically install the axle into your hub. So let me show you guys how this works really quick. So here we have this axle puller piece. Now that's a part of the axle now, but you can see that it's thin enough that it actually fits through the hub. So that's how it works. It pulls it through the hub, and this bigger piece right here basically sits there. And once you get this threaded on, it's actually going to start pulling this axle forward and into the hub. So this is a really handy tool to have, a lot cheaper than the $500 tool that's for removing and installing axles. So if you know a couple tricks, then you can go ahead and get by with some much less expensive tools and get the same quality job done at home. But since we didn't need this, let's go ahead, pull this off, and then get an axle nut on here, and we'll have this thing installed and ready to go. There we go. After tightening up a couple of 18s and 19s and 22s, keep in mind the bolts that come with the control arms, they're a little bit different size than the factory ones, but if you have a standard, metric socket set, then you should be good. They're all gonna be metric anyways, but yeah, everything is torqued down, and the last step for us to do is to torque down this axle nut. So I've got my gun right here. I've got a big old socket. This is a, what is it? 36 millimeter. So we're gonna put that on there and give this baby some ugga-duggas. And there you go. I really recommend using an impact because it's gonna make this a lot easier. And if you wanted to, you could go ahead and bend the tabs in that are on the axle so they kind of lock in, but not a big deal because this is a locking nut and it's not gonna back itself out at any point, I can guarantee that. So yeah, this is all done. I'm super happy with the overall look. Everything looks clean, brand new, all new joints everywhere. This steering and suspension setup in the front is gonna be super tight. I can't wait to drive this thing. And if you wanna see me drive this thing, stay tuned for more episodes because soon enough we'll have this thing back on the ground and driving around. I'll give you guys my impressions on this suspension kit. As I said before, I have used this kit previously on my own personal cars, so I'm not concerned with the quality of this kit. In fact, I think that they're pretty nice quality, and for the deal that you get in terms of saving money, these are a great option for you guys if you want to just get back on the road as quickly as possible and replace everything. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you learned something, please let me know with a like or a comment down below. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. We love BMWs here at the Bimmer Barn. And as always, I hope everyone has an awesome day. We'll see you in the next video.